How's it going, folks? Welcome to Ricky's Sketch. Today we're going to be drawing Dr. Frankenstein from Soul Eater. So first off, I'm going to get some lines drawn in time lapse and come back with the measurements in a sec. But if you just want to start off with a rectangle, it's going to be 5 inches in length and 8 inches in height, with a line, horizontal line, which is 5 3/4 inches from the bottom and 2 1/4 inch from the top. So let's go. So now that we've got that done, I can take a bit of a breather because I always have to rush in that first minute because everything's always like sped up and it's crazy like. But you can see that I've drawn the lines in. Basically, from that horizontal line that we drew in, which was 5 3/4 inches from the top, if you go down parallel by 2.5 inches, draw another parallel line, another horizontal line parallel to the initial one. And there's also a rectangle where I'm drawing his head in now, which is, it's 1 7/8 inches in length. That's right, and it is 1 1/4 inch from the right side and 1 7/8 inches from the left side again. So there we go. That's pretty damn confusing, but for some reason I decided to do everything in inches for this video, so that's why it's all a bit 7/8 and all that kind of technical stuff, but let's just go with that. As well as that, you can see that I've drawn a diagonal line near the top of that box, which his head and his shoulders resting on, where that circle is that I've just drawn, like near where my fingers are now. There's a diagonal line which is resting on that first horizontal line that I told you to draw in earlier, which is 1/8 of an inch on the left hand side and 1/2 of an inch down on the right hand side, making it like that diagonal line, kind of like a triangle, which is where his, like I say, his head and his shoulder are going to be resting on. He's kind of had a bit of a slant while he's sitting in his chair. As well as that, you can see that I've got his like 2 rectangle like things going off on a diagonal, which are his legs in the bottom portion. Those I don't think I have proper measurements for, which is awesome. But now we're going to be moving on to centimeters. So basically there's that rectangle that you can see where his legs are encased in the bottom, and you got that darker horizontal line near the bottom of the box that we initially drew in. That rectangle is 8.5 centimeters. Yeah, so swap to centimeters now from inches. But it's 8.5 centimeters by 6.8 centimeters high. And then we've got the legs in. I mean, I guess you can draw them at any angle that you want. Mine are... I don't really know where mine are exactly, but they're all about like 1/2 inch in width. Just like there's that top rectangle as well, like the horizontal line near the top, which is parallel to that other horizontal line, which is parallel to the initial horizontal line. That's about 1/2 inch down. So if you can see that one that's in the centre of the page at the moment, the horizontal line underneath that is about 1/2 inch from that line parallel, and the 2 legs, the 2 rectangle legs, they're about 1/2 inch as well in width. So we'll just go with that, and you can just draw them at any angle that you want them to. You don't need to copy this exact pose if you don't want to, but we're just going to go with that for now. Right, now I can start to calm down and go on with what we're actually doing. So you can see that by using the edge of that initial rectangle that we drew in, like where his head and is basically all of his torso is going to be, by using the left edge of that, you can start to get his left arm in. Obviously that one is kind of just like slouching, it's just hanging down because he's feeling a bit lazy at the moment, and his right arm is just at a complete right angle basically, because he's going to be leaning on his office chair that he usually wheels around on about everywhere. So yeah, I mean, running along that diagonal line as well near the top of the page where his head and his shoulder is, you can again like kind of get a good grasp of where his head and his shoulder are going to be lying. So far, like, everything's just running off the edge of the lines that we initially drew in, making things quite a bit easier. So if you can get those lines in, obviously it will make the entire process of drawing his body a lot easier to start with. His arms, they're going to be about 1/2 inch in width as well, to be honest. We're going to go back to inches, but 1/2 inch, I'd say. Same with his right arm which we can't really see at the moment because my hand is hiding it, but that's basically running off the right line of that box. There we go, you can see it now. And then, as I say, like, it's just going completely as a right angle. So about the halfway point of his left arm. So basically, if you just make the bottom of his right arm like intersect the halfway point of his left arm, then that's about where you want to be. And then just go up half an inch, and then you can get the other part of his right arm, like the actual, like, the entire width of it. But that's pretty much all there is to it to getting the arms in place. We've got his shoulder in like I'm drawing now, and at the moment we're just going to keep his head as a simple circle. Obviously we've got those lines in for his chin, and we're starting to already add the colour. As I usually do, jump straight into the details instead of actually focusing on getting the basic shapes in first. I mean, we don't even have his legs or even the rest of his torso at the moment, but we're still going to be drawing in his collar, and we're even drawing in the creases of his coat as well. But again, as you can see, it just runs across the runs along the the right line of that box, so that you can see where his back is going to be, basically. And this little rectangle that I'm drawing in at the moment, you can see it's about, say, an eighth of an inch from that horizontal line in the centre of the page, and that's basically just going to be the top of his desk chair that he's leaning on, his office chair. And then we've just got the chains, which are the bits that are curving around like an L shape, and also we're drawing his hand at the moment, which is kind of like curving outward and meets on that line again. So at the moment everything is just running off the lines that we initially drew in. So as I say, like, it does make things a lot easier if you can get those lines in. I understand that a lot of my measurements weren't really accurate or clear to understand, given that I'm working in inches for some reason in this video, and decided to do a lot of the measurements in 7/8 inches, which is always awkward when it's not like an inch or an inch and a quarter or an inch and a half. But yeah, I mean, his hand is pretty straightforward, to be honest. It just curves to that line where the little finger just rests on, and then if you just wanted to draw like a diagonal line for where all of the tips of his fingers meet, just so that you know that they fall correctly, and then obviously his thumb is just off the edge of his hand, just mostly obscured by the rest of his hand, by the back of his hand, because obviously like his thumb would be in front of that. But yeah, so we're just trying to get his index finger in properly. I don't feel like I've had a proper intro at the moment, so let's just review. If no one caught it at the start, we are drawing Stein from Soul Eater, which is an awesome manga. It's incredible, really funny, and Stein is actually my favourite character from there because he looks really cool. I don't like Frankenstein usually, but this version of him seems pretty good to me, and yeah, I just think that this portrayal of Frankenstein is just quite interesting. It's pretty cool, and I love the massive bolt through his head, which is always awesome, and his weapon is a massive scythe, so that's always cool. But yeah, I mean, Soul Eater it's just really interesting and crazy how, like, things that would usually kill you, I mean, I understand that like anime and manga usually take it quite far with things like where things that would usually kill you don't kill you, but Soul Eater takes it a bit further. But it's awesome. It has a lot of interesting ideas. I do wish that the ending was maybe a bit better. I don't know how it ends in the anime, but the manga, I think it's just because before reading Soul Eater, I think I read Shaman King, and that ending was like the manga ending, the incomplete manga ending was very disappointing, and then I had this ending to deal with as well, so I was just like, I just wanted something that would really like just shout, like just scream ending at me, and this one didn't really do that, unfortunately. but maybe it was just because of a bad run-in with the ending of Shaman King. I mean, the actual ending of Shaman King was pretty good, but it didn't make it to Europe, so that sucks. But yeah, enough about Shaman King. We'll speak about that next week. But at the moment, we are dealing with Stein, who is a very interesting character, very funny, and he's absolutely mental as well. I hope you like the music from the time-lapse. I had a bit of trouble finding something that would be suitable for him, and I did want something that would be a bit like kooky and mental, but I couldn't really find anything from the Soul Eater soundtrack, and I did want something like that was really mental, so like some proper like metal or something like that. But then I found this song, which was actually from Soul Eater, and it was quite mental, but in a different kind of way, like really weird and wacky. And I just thought that it summarised him quite well. And I'm sure that the bad flute playing, bad recorder playing, is something that's either something that you love or you hate. But I personally think it's awesome, so I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, I'm obviously moving on to more details on the trousers now, just getting some of the creases in there. I've already got his coat in, and as we spoke about last week with the, well, not last week, I think it might be the week before, but the link in the King of the Red Lion video, obviously you got to make sure to make the jacket, when it's resting on your legs and stuff, when legs are in the way, obviously the jacket needs to move in that effect. It needs to like wrap around the thing that's in its way, like in this circumstance. And the one with the link video as well, his leg is obviously pushing the jacket up, so it needs to like curve around and just curve around his leg basically. But you can see that I'm drawing in some details of the chair now as well. We're not going to focus too much on the chair, to be honest. I mean, at the moment I'm just getting these details in and letting it do that in normal time, because I'm only getting a bit done. But when we move on to like the base of the chair and stuff like that, I won't be focusing on that too much. I'll actually be doing that in time lapse, because like we're not here to draw the chair. I mean, I understand it in this circumstance it would be necessary for this pose, but I'm trying to show how to draw Stein rather than how to draw Stein's chair, like Stein's chair. I mean, you could have him sitting in any pose, like on a different chair, but I guess in this circumstance, I thought, you know what, like, I'm sure that you can draw whatever you want him to be sitting in. I mean, in this initial circumstance, as I say, like, this is something I looked at reference for, and I thought, like, I didn't really want to change the pose, to be honest. I mean, this, you may notice if you've watched or like read Soul Eater before, but this is actually the picture of Stein from the cover of Soul Eater 5, I think it is, Volume 5. I just thought, like, in all fairness, that's the pose that I was going for, and I don't think that I would have been able to top it in any other way, so I just thought that by just using it as reference, I know where everything's got to be. That's the Stein. That's the style that I'm looking for, like the pose that I want him to be in, and that's exactly how I wanted it to be. So I thought that why not just go for that? Why change something if it's not broke? That's not the proper saying, but we'll go with that anyway. But as you can see now, I am just going down to the cuff of the leg. I started off the chain effect on the chair, but as I said, like, I'll do that in time lapse because it doesn't need to be done on screen really. If you do want to know how to draw chains, let me know and I'll do another video on how to draw chains. But at the moment, we're just going to focus on Stein. So I'm just getting his left leg in place now. So using the bottom line, that bottom horizontal line that we're at now, I'm going to be using that to place the boot. Well, literally place the boot in so that we've got a line to work off of. I mean, at the moment I am going to be drawing it quite a bit bigger, but I think I do rub it out and make it a bit smaller because it looked more like he had clown shoes. at that time, and I will also be doing his other leg and the chair in time lapse, because like the other leg is basically going to be the exact same. We're just using that rectangle that we initially drew in, and obviously the angle of his boot is going to be different, but it's not too much harder to draw, and it's kind of more like an extension off of his leg, so I'd say it's a bit easier to draw than the one that I just did now, because it's just using that initial rectangle pretty much. So I'll be going ahead and doing that in time lapse in just a second. I mean, you can see that I'm adding some of the basic shape to the leg now just to start it off, but I will be moving on to time lapse to do that in a bit. I mean, after, you will notice that I'm probably going to get quite a few details in. I think what I'm going to be doing is just getting the chair and his other leg in place, and then we're going to come back and get the bottom of his lab coat done in real time, which is kind of like his, well, not real time, but this ×2 time, which is a bit closer to real time. Hopefully you would rather have it in ×2 than having to sacrifice a lot more of the video to do it in real time, because I'll kind of run out of stuff to say now. So if it was in real time and going proper slow, then I think I would really have nothing to say, and it would just be a video of me going, and no one wants that because it just drives you mental. But my incessant talking might be driving you mental as well, but you're gonna have to stick with that because I've got nothing else. This is my this is all the commentary that I've got, and hopefully some of it helps. I'm sure me waffling on and not speaking about the drawing doesn't really help, but yeah, I don't know. As I say, I did go back and rub some of that boot out, and we're actually making the cuff of the trousers, like we're actually making the trousers a bit shorter so that we can get the boot in a more natural position, because we don't want it to be massive. And already it is looking a bit better, to be honest. I think I do need to alter the toe of that boot a tiny bit, or actually what I'm doing now, yeah, that's kind of solving it, to be honest. But we are just using that bottom horizontal line that we've drawn in to get the boot in place, and I do think that it's looking a bit better now. It's not too big. And another thing to go on as well, the edge of the box that we drew in earlier, which might remind you was 8 inches in height and 5 inches in length, we're using the edge of that to find out where the toe of his boot is going to be resting on, although that's kind of changed a bit now, so completely ignore me, but you can kind of grasp where about his boot has got to go. But anyway, I'm just going to jump into time lapse, get his other leg done, get the bottom of the desk chair done, and we can come back and get his lab coat done. So I will carry on now. So there we go. I mean, you can see that I managed to get the all the chair done and his other leg, which, like I say, I mean, it's not, the other leg isn't too difficult to comprehend how to draw that. I mean, the cape isn't going to be, but I just thought, as we've drawn one leg, we haven't drawn one cape yet, so let's draw the cape together. You can see it's just curve at the moment, it's as a usual cape is, but I just thought, we've done a leg, the other leg is just something that you can probably work out for yourselves. I mean, I understand that I jumped into quite a bit doing that chair, and obviously that wasn't, we haven't drawn 2 chairs, so I probably should have gone over that with you, but like I say, we're here to draw Stein, not Stein's chair. If you want a separate video on Stein's chair, we can draw Stein's chair together. That would be fun. But yeah, as I said before, we're just drawing in the cape now, usual kind of curve. I mean, obviously there's some bits where it like folds rather pointy like, because I mean, obviously you can see that it's not just like a single curvy line, it's kind of like more like, I'm doing it with my hand again, but you can't see what I'm doing while I'm speaking. But yeah, it's a bit edgier. Edgy is a good word. We'll go with edgier. It's a bit edgier, not just like round all the way. It's got a bit of an edge to it. But now we just added the other line, which is kind of going to be the where the cape, where the lab coat folds. because obviously we're still going to be able to see some of it. So this would be the front of the lab coat, but that portion that's near to the leg now, that I've just drawn a line to separate the two, that'll be like the back of his lab coat. And we're drawing in a crease now, like a line for one of the wrinkles in his cape, so that we can just see how him sitting on it, how he's like how he's sitting, how the cape has to like lap over his leg. That's obviously going to cause some creases and wrinkles in it. But yes, that is pretty much it for him. Not really much to speak about now while I'm going over the leg again, because as I say, the leg was done in that rectangle, so there isn't really much to speak about that. The toe of the boot obviously extends a bit further than that rectangle, but if you just think about it like a semicircle off the edge of that initial rectangle we drew in, you can kind of get the shape of the boot in a bit better. It's kind of at a steeper 3/4 angle, so you can see the front of it more than you can the side, but you can still see some of the side. It's quite a bit diminished, but yeah, I mean, we've got that one side of the cape done. We will be moving on to the others in a bit after I have finished with this leg, but I just seem to be trying to get that curve right, because we don't want to make it look like his leg's broken, but we've also got to make sure that it does look like it's curvy still, like where his knee is. But now we're just drawing in the other side of the cape finally, after speaking about it. The very famous left side of the cape has now been covered. But yeah, basically just an extension from his index finger, slight curve going down, quite like a bit parallel to the other side of his cape. But now that we've done that, I'll go ahead and get most of the details for his body, like his clothing, done, and we will move on to his face. So we got through quite a bit more there, and you can see they added all of the stitches to his clothing, all of the stitching effects, which really do make him like shine a bit more as a character. And you can see that I put the bolts through his head as well, and finished off the chair. All of these details you can see by just looking at a reference picture of him, really. I'm not going to tell you where to put the stitches, because you can put them wherever you want. There isn't like a set place for everything to go. It kind of depends on how he's standing or how he's sitting, what position you want him to be in. I mean, you don't need to even copy this pose, but if you wanted to go with this pose, again, the stitching can be wherever you feel like you want it, or if you do want it to be exactly how it is in this picture, then I would just advise looking at reference, or just, I mean, yeah, I mean, I pretty much just looked at reference to find out where all the stitches are and the wrinkles and stuff like that. So if you just wanted to copy exactly how I've done it, then go ahead. But it's not really something that I can teach. I mean, I didn't learn it in any way. It was just looking at a picture and just drawing them in the same place. But the face, basically, it's just two circles at the moment for his glasses. Fortunately, my enemy, the eyes, the exact, like having to get eyes the exact same each side, is not in this video. I don't need to fight against my enemy again, because it's just glasses this time, so I made it a bit easier for myself. I always love it when a character that I draw has glasses or a mask, because that way I don't need to worry about things like that. Like when I did Nemesis Q and Chibi Metroid, that saved me a hell of a lot of hassle, and I was very grateful for that. But I do like to think that sometimes I manage to get the eyes, well, like, good. But obviously, it is always a fight to get it right first time. I mean, I seem to be having trouble with the glasses, and they're just circles. But obviously, we don't want to get them too big, but they don't want them to be too small either. So, it seems like we are having a bit of trouble with that. But obviously, where we've drawn his jawline, that's just where you want to get the mouth to run along, and he's got a bit of a smirk on his face, and he's also smoking as well. Another thing that won't be covered in the real time ×2 thing will be his smoke cloud. Again, something that you can just draw however you want yourself. If you want to copy it, just copy reference, or just copy how I've done it as well. But yeah, you can draw the smoke cloud however you want to draw a smoke cloud. It doesn't need to be the exact same shape. You could have it as anything. I was considering making it the Shinigami's mask, but I just thought if I'm going to copy the drawing this much, then I may as well just copy it exactly how it is, and I was happy with the result. And although it is in a sense copying, I think that, as I've said, it's a pose that I like, so we'll go with that pose. But I think his face is pretty much done for now. We've got to get his eyebrows in, obviously, and his hair. But his facial features, like the glasses, his nose and his mouth as well, they're pretty much done. One thing that I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't looked at reference would have been this scar. Like, I do pay attention to the characters, but not so much that I would remember his scar. I mean, I wouldn't remember... Probably wouldn't even remember that he wore glasses, but if I hadn't looked at reference. But yeah, I think it's always good just to be sure to always just double check with reference. But now we're just getting the top of his head in like a bit darker, a bit neater, so that we can start to run his hair off of there, because we can use that as a basic guideline for whereabouts his hair has got to fall, because it's all going to be running along the top of his head, as hair does. But obviously, as he's at a slant, his hair will be hanging down on the left-hand side of his head, or his right. But it's our left, so we're just going to stick with that. And obviously, the right side of his head will be a lot closer to the dome of his head because of the angle that he's at. But the hair isn't too much to be worried about. Again, reference if you want it exactly, or you can just draw the hair however you want it to be, really. As long as, if it was in this circumstance, you want to make sure that you take gravity into account, because obviously it's going to be flowing downwards with the angle that his head's at. But that's just if you choose to draw it in this way anyway. But yeah, we're looking pretty good at the moment. The bolt was quite easy to do. It's basically just horizontal line. If his head was straight up, then it would just be like, if his head was in a vertical position, the bolt would be exactly horizontal to that. So obviously you just take that into account. When his head's on a slant, just make sure that the bolt runs straight through perfectly fine. His ears are basically just, the bottom of them will, let's say that they'll meet at where his jawline is, just a bit above his jawline really, and the top of them, you don't really see them, they're obscured by the bolt really. Again, we're just drawing his fringe in now and taking into consideration gravity in this situation. Taking that into account, how we make all of his hair flow to the, like, down, leftwards down, south west. We'll go with that. In a southwest position, the hair's going to flow down in that direction because of the way that he's sitting. Again, really love this pose, which is why I chose to draw it in this way, just by copying how it was, because the pose is just ace. I do love it, and it just summarises Stein really. He's just a really crazy character, in the fun sense and in a mentally unstable sense as well. There were points in the manga that I did think that badness was going to take him over, and that would have really sucked, because he's a really awesome character, and I would hate it if anything had to happen to him because of him turning evil or anything like that. But fortunately, I don't think anything. I mean, he did let it take over for a bit, but he was cool. He was cool. He used it for good, so that's fine. But I would say that he is looking pretty much done at the moment. I mean, I haven't put his eyebrows in just yet, but I will be popping those in 1 second. But I'm gonna say that that's just about as good as done, really. I mean, his hair, his glasses, all of his facial features, everything is all in place. The only thing left to do, really, is to get the smoke cloud in. Just getting the throat of, like, the throat line of his neck in there, because he hasn't got a really fat neck or anything like that. And just adding a few extra hairs just to show the like, just to what's it called? Exaggerate the gravity again. And just darkening some of these lines up once more, so that I just want to make sure that they're right, and by darkening them up as well, I know exactly where to ink. It has been a while since I inked, considering that on the Link and King of Red Lines video I did it without inking, so I need to make sure to get these lines pressed down extra hard so that I know where I'm inking. I need to make sure to remember to ink as well. Let's get into that point where I'm starting to yawn in the video, so clearly I'm starting to bore myself, so I feel very sorry for you guys. But I honestly don't think there is much more to say on this video. I think it's about time to wrap it up and get the inking and colouring done. And obviously we've got to move on to his smoke cloud as well. As I said before, I'm not going to be covering the smoke cloud. I think you guys can get that done. And there are the eyebrows, we're getting them in. Okay, there we go. Just before I wrap up the video, we're getting the eyebrows in, so that's okay. But yeah, as I said before, the cloud, well, the eyebrows, they run parallel to his glasses, by the way, and make sure to leave quite a bit of a gap between them, because we want him to have a raised eyebrow expression, just to make him look a bit more friendly, a bit like he's curious. I think he's quite curious, and chilled. He's very laid back as well, which is why I love him. But yeah, as I said before, smoke cloud, you can do it any way you want. No one's going to tell you that it's wrong. You can do it however you would like, because I don't think his smoke cloud is natural anyway, so you can go a bit crazy on that if you want. But yes, I am just going to make sure to get his smoke cloud in, get all of the pencils with the final lines sorted. I mean, I think he's pretty much sorted as it is now. But just to cover that, just in case I do, in case you're wondering why I'm carrying on drawing without telling you guys, but I'm going to get that all done, get everything inked, get everything coloured, and come back and review. Again, if you want any colouring videos, just say, and I can split these parts into two, but I think, much like the smoke cloud, you can colour him however you want, and if you do want to colour him like true to how his clothes would be in the show and that kind of thing, I hope that I've pulled it off in that sense by the end of the video. But if you do want to colour it in that way, I will make sure to pop down in the description what colours I used, and for exactly what parts of his clothing as well, what inks I used. I mean, if you want as well, I mean, I probably will, but I can just write in the description as well what set, like what Copic set the specific colours were from as well, just in case you want, like, you needed to buy the set or anything like that. I may do that, just if that makes it easier or anything like that. I'm not entirely sure what you would like me to put in there, but I mean, if there are any like equipment questions that you'd like me to answer, then of course I can always pop that in the description whenever I do a drawing. I usually do, well, I think I usually do put the colours that I've been using in there, so any other questions that you have, just let me know. But enough talking, we're going to carry on and get this drawing done, and I shall be back to review, so we shall get the colouring done now. have it. That was my tutorial for how to draw Stein from Soul Eater. I hope it helped in any way possible. If it did, then I consider me happy. I know that the tutorials are always hard to follow, and trust me, I do hope that after the next 2 episodes I will be focusing on basic shapes and trying to help you guys follow along a bit easier. Sorry about the measurements at the start. Obviously they were the foundation of this whole drawing and I didn't really cover them too well, but hopefully that improves. Just let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it, and I will hope to see you guys again. See ya!